Welcome back, Fret friends, and welcome to part 2 of Richard Smeaton's Jim Harley Refret. And you can see I've got the guitar on the jig. We don't have to make a federal case of this because all we've got to do is get the neck straight. We don't have to use the dials or anything. Take a not straight edge, making sure that the neck is flat, level, straight, whatever you want to call it, which it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to re-radius the whole fingerboard. The fingerboard is not flat, it has a radius on it, and in this case it's a 16-inch radius. And you'll notice here I have a brand new 16-inch radius beam. Expensive bits of kit these. You see, that's the radius, and now this arc, this curve will absolutely perfectly match the radius of the fingerboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to affix some sandpaper to this, and we're going to lightly sand the fingerboard. I'll probably use a quite a light grit, probably go with something like I'll go with 240 grit, I imagine, and I'll finish it off by hand with 400 grit. All we're going to do is just smooth this fingerboard and just make sure the whole length has this radius all the way along. And then when we put the frets in, we'll match the radius of this arc, we'll match the frets to that radius. We'll bend the fret wire so it matches it exactly. Because these, I can't use the press to get these in because the body's too thick, it won't fit under my press. So I'm going to have to put the frets in by hand, and I'm going to use a fretting hammer to hammer these in. So I need to hammer them pretty lightly, keeping that arc. So I will show you that process as we get to it. So going to get some sandpaper on here, some 240 grit, and we're just going to smooth the fingerboard and get it all ready, nice and smooth and proper radius for the new frets. So come back soon and see how we get on. Something else I thought I'd show on this video, how I make a beam for doing the radius on a fingerboard. And there's a radius beam, and this radius is a 16-inch radius which fits perfectly the radius on the Jim Harley guitar. And what I do is I'll take some 24-25mm wide or 1-inch wide masking tape. I'll cover the whole surface. What I'll do next is I'll take some double-sided tape and I'll put that on top of the masking tape, and once that's done, obviously I'll stick one side down. Once that's done, I'll peel off the backing and I'll cut to width some sandpaper, in this case 240 grit. And what we'll do then is we'll have this complete surface covered in 240 grit sandpaper, and that is then what I'll use to re-radius and smooth the fingerboard on the guitar. I thought I'd just show that so you know exactly how we do it. The reason I use masking tape and double-sided tape is when it comes to removing this, all I have to do is peel it off, and the masking tape is going to peel off so easily from here. If I use double-sided sticky tape, I'd have to be using some kind of solvent to get it off. It'd be a right messy affair, so that's why I use masking tape. So there you go. And here we are, making sure we're all straight on the fingerboard, which we are. 16-inch radius gauge, 240 grit paper, and that's it. And all we're going to do is a few strokes, backwards and forwards initially, and then we'll just go long straight strokes. Moving off the board. That is now ready for refresh. I might just get a couple more strokes. Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. And that is good enough. We're taking hardly any material off at all. All we've really done is smoothed out. We've taken off any burrs on the binding there. That is beautiful. Now what all I have to really do is I can go and take a piece of 400 grit and just go across by hand just to soften anything. It's not about removing material, it's about having a smooth finish for the fret. That is and that's it. You can see there, just smoothing, we're not removing any material, just smoothing off. What I will do now is I'll take either some naphtha or maybe a bit of white spirit, wipe the fingerboard clean. I'll get my blade in there, we'll clear out all these fret slots. The next part of the job is I'm going to get the fret wire, I'm going to pre-bend it and I'm going to cut it all to size, and then I'm going to remove the bits of tang so we make sure every fret fits in these slots where it needs to be without cutting into the slots. So that's quite an intricate piece of work, going to take a bit of time, so tune in for that, and I'll be back soon. Well, welcome to part 2 of this Jim Harley acoustic guitar, model number GJA ED4C. Last time you saw it, we had it clamped up on the neck jig behind me there. We got the neck all nice and level, and we sanded it with a radius block or a radius beam. Got the radius back to 16-inch radius along this arc this way, along the length of the neck. You'll see it's all now prepared, it's all smooth. We've cleaned out all the slots and we've tidied up all the edges of the binding. But there's a little problem here getting the frets in, because you see it's bound both sides. So how are we supposed to get the frets in these gaps? Well, I'm going to show you how. And what we do is, I've got a little drilled holes in there, all numbered, and each of these numbers corresponds to a fret number. So fret number 1, when I cut the fret, it'll go in number 1, and number 2 will go in number 2. But the thing is, I've cut the frets, I've pre-bent the fret, cut it, it's not quite cut to size yet, can you see there? Thing is, I need to remove this edge of the tang here, because it needs to fit inside these two bound edges here. So we're going to take off a little section of the fret, and I could possibly, if I've got one knocking about, I'll put this one I put here earlier. And that is the fret wire as it is. And what we need to do is we need to take off this bit of tang at the end, like so. And now you can see, can you see that? Maybe I'm a little bit close. And we need to use a tool called a tang nipper or a tang nibber, and I have one. And so fret number 1, I'll just make sure I've got these in the right order because they are all cut to length. Shooby dooby doo. And what we're going to do is, that's actually a little bit wider than I need it to be, but what we're going to do is we're going to nib off this end, and I've got some fret cutters here, and they have a blade, and this blade cuts, and what we do is we place the fret inside the nipper here. There's a groove there, I don't know what you can see. Once we've got lined up to where we need to be, we're going to nip away that bit of tang. Like so, and there you go, we've nibbed off the tang. Now it looks like we've nibbed a lot off here, and I've nibbed a lot off here. But that's okay because this fret is a lot wider than I need it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it there, and I'm going to take the same amount off on the other side. Again. Coming from this side. And there, and we've nibbed off both sides, and now we have an overhang. Can you see that? What I need to do is I just need to tidy this up a little bit. So what I'll do is I will take a file, free edge file, and I will just file this little bit so it's nice and flat. We don't want to go in too deep. Sometimes you can get away with not filing, it depends how close you get to the actual top of the fret. I could also use this file which has one ground flat edge. It's probably better to use this one because I can just file across, but I'm not going to cut into the tang itself because that edge is ground flat. See that? And I'm going to do is get this as flat as I can to the fret. A little bit of overhang there. And I've got to do this for each fret. This is why I charge more for a bound neck, because this is going to take me an extra hour and a half, maybe extra 2 hours. But you'll see now, that fret is now, both sides, I've removed the bottom of the tang, and that will now fit into the hole or into the fret slot. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to position this. I'm not going to press it in because I will be gluing these in later. In fact, I'll get this in on a second, it'll be easier. And there you'll see how it works. We've now got the tang inside the gap with an overhang on the edges, but we're not cutting through the binding. And when we tap that in or press that in with the fret press, it's going to squeeze out to the sides, but it's not going to cut through this, through the binding on the side. And that's how we get round the binding. That's why we charge more for binding. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that when I flatten this fret, it's not going to push all the way out. It's not going to push too flat. And that looks just about perfect. So if I wanted to, I could put that in now. I'm not going to, because I'm going to glue them in, I'm going to glue them in, I'm going to go on the fret press and get them all done together. But we are looking very good there. So I'm going to prepare all 20 frets. That's right, I've got 20 to do. And like I say, it's a matter of removing the tang, filing it flush, making sure I've got the ground side there. And I've 19 more to do, so I'm going to crack on with that. When I've got it done, I will come back, show you how we got on, and I'm going to show you how we're going to put the frets in. We're going to use two separate methods for getting the frets in. At this end, I have no choice but to hammer them in, because I've got a big wooden block underneath that, but I cannot fit this under my fret press. But these frets down at this end, I can fit under the fret press. So I'm going to press this half in, I'm going to hammer this half in. I personally don't like hammering frets in. I like to use a fret press all the time if possible, because you get a nice even press, whereas hammering them in, you've got to, you know, not that you don't get an even press, it's just a little bit more difficult and you get glue splatter and everything. But I will show you that process when we get to it, so come back soon. I've just turned the camera on the guitar because I'm going to show you how this works. And you see I've got 5 cut and done, ready. And you'll see there that the tang, which is the bottom part of the fret, is now cut to go inside these slots, which it will do. So when we press the fret in, it's going to sit inside the binding. And I've done it for each one, look, and these are all precision cut to width with the tang cut. I hope you can see there. Let me just get right in there. You see how it all works now, and each fret, again, I've cut off X amount of tang, just so we can overlap the binding on each side. It takes quite a while to do this. It's why I charge more for doing a bound neck, because it's going to take me a couple of hours. I've done 5 in half an hour. I have 15 more to do, which is going to take me another 90 minutes. It's why I charge an extra 2 hours. Well, I don't. I charge an extra hour on top of the. It's why I charge 25 quid more, which is 2 hours work, but it's only 1 hour's charge. I've got 15 more to do, so I'm going to crack on with that. Once I've got the frets cut, so I've made sure the tang inside is nice and straight. The tang's cut nice and straight, and we place them in the placeholder for the frets. 1 row numbered, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've got 1 fret per slot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got 15 more to do, so I'm going to crack on with that. Back soon. Well, as you may notice, it's quite a bit darker in this room now, and that's because it's now late afternoon. And I've spent the afternoon on this guitar of Richard Smeaton's, and if you'll see there, I don't have the frets in, but I have the frets all lined up where they need to be. Now I've snipped off all the bits of tang that needed snipping off. I've basically cut all the frets to size, and now what we're going to do next is, I wanted to do this in the light, but it's too late for that. So the next part of the job is to fit the frets. And you see how now we've cut the tang each side, and now it's going to fit in that in the gap between each binding, or the binding on each side. Each one is precision cut. That's why it takes so long. It's probably taken me, I don't know, best part of 3 hours this afternoon just to cut those frets. It's why I charge more for a bound neck, because it's a lot more work. Doing this and filing all down and cutting them to size is quite a bit more work involved. So I'm now ready to glue in the frets, and I'm going to use two methods of fixing these frets in. And at this far end here, where I can't use a press, I'm going to have to hammer them in. Now I do have a proper fretting hammer, and what we'll do is we'll tap them in with the nylon side just at the edges to get them where they're. Once we'll get a line of glue in there, I'm just using regular Type Bond wood glue. We'll put a stream of that in the gap or in the slot there. We'll hammer the edges in with the plastic, and then we'll tap the whole lot down with the brass end of the hammer. And I'll be doing that for probably the first 3, 6, 9, first 10 frets. So half of the frets will be hammered in, and the other half I want to get in on the fret press. There are slight advantages to doing it on the fret press. You just get a better and more even press. But taking your time with the hammer, it's a tried and trusted method that a lot of luthiers use. Many luthiers even nowadays still use the hammering in method, so it makes no difference. I'm going to get that done. I don't know if I'm going to do it tonight or I'm going to do it tomorrow. I may work on something else tonight and do this in a light, and then at least I can get some of it filmed and you can see how it works. So I'm going to knock this one on the head tonight, I think, and I will do exactly what I just said. I'll come back and show you how we get the frets in. I say tomorrow. I might do it tonight if Michelle wants to come down and give me an hand, because I need a little bit of a hand with this. So let's see how it goes. So stay tuned. Whatever happens next, it will be the refrets. You know, stay tuned. Right, welcome back, fret friends. A little bit of explaining to do here, because where I was in my last, just prior to this little bit I'm recording now on the video, was I was getting ready to do the refret on the guitar, and I actually did do a refret, but wasn't happy with how it came out. A couple of frets were popping out, and I decided that the fingerboard was too brittle. So you'll look at it now, you'll see it's a lot darker than it was before. That's because I've soaked it 2 days in mineral oil, or known to us as lemon oil, just to soften the wood. I took all the new frets out I'd put in. I decided I'm going to refret it again, so it's exactly what I'm going to do. And the reason I soaked it in the oil is to wet the wood a bit and get some moisture in there. Obviously this fingerboard had never been, supposed to treat these once or twice a year with lemon oil, mineral oil basically, which not only cleans the surface of a fretboard, it also treats the wood and nourishes it and feeds it. And it's something I do twice a year on my own guitars. Anyway, now that's all done, I've cleaned all the slots out again, I'm going to refret again. So I'm just in the process of bending some fret wire. And I've also decided I'm going to put these in 5 at a time, whereas before I did half and half again. I'm going to put them in 5 at a time. When I've got 5 in, I'm going to glue them in again. And when I've got 5 in, I'm going to clamp those 5 and let the glue set for 2 hours and leave them clamped for 2 hours. And I'm going to do 5 more, then 5 more and 5 more till we've got all the frets done. That way we're going to get a good clamping, because hammering them in, where I hammered them in before, they wanted to try and pop out, and they were, I got them all leveled, and I had 2 or 3 being temperamental. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go with a different fret wire. This fret wire's got a wider tang. It's got a 0.6mm tang. Now, the fret slots on here were cut to barely 0.5mm wide. So what I've done is I've made a little tool. And this is a 0.5 or 0.6 tang, but what I've done is I've filed off the barbs. So it's just a straight piece of metal, and what I do is I go and stick, basically I stick this in the fret slot and I hammer it in just to widen these slots, and that way we now make sure that the frets are going to go in. And you look, they go in easy enough, they come out easy enough. The fret tang I'm using now is a tiny bit wider anyway, but you see, we could do that, and if we need to, we can just hammer it in and we can test all the slots, make sure the fret is going to fit in there before we hammer it in, like so, blah 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 blah. So we know the frets are going to fit in there now. Like I say, it's a 0.5 tang. These fret wire have, I believe they have a 0.6, but even with that, we've got a good barb on them. So these are going to hold in. So I'm just about to bend some more fret wire. I've already set my fret bending tool machine. at the radius I want it to be. Really simple to do this. Once you've adjusted on the back, tightened it up and got it to where you need it to be, you do a test run and then you bend the fret wire, and it's really simple. Well, I say simple, let me get it in first. Let me get it in the way it needs to be. Just a matter of threading it through. There you go. It's just a matter of threading it through, and once it's threaded through, you see how it works? Once it's threaded through, you just basically wind it around, and that is bending the wire. You can just pull it around if you want to, and I do it a couple of times, and I do it each end. I've just done that end, so I'm going to do this end, and I swap the ends around, and I do it 2 or 3 times. Again, blah blah blah, then I'm going to do this end, and I should on a good day get at least 7 frets out of this length, probably even 8. So I've got that all bent. I'm going to cut the frets pretty much the same as I did before, remove a bit of tang for the edges of the fingerboard where it's bound. And all I'm really going to do today is I'm not doing any major work. I'm going to get all the frets cut, all 20 frets. And then I'm going to place them, like I say, I'm going to do them 5 at a time. So, sorry for wasting your time. The other part of this video, the original part 2 of this video, is well, it would have been deleted if you're seeing this. It's still up there at the moment, but it's going to be deleted, and I'm going to replace it with this one. It's going to have half of the old video, and this half is going to be the new part of the video. End of the day, it's all about getting the job right. You know, I have had, in the past, I've had trouble with acoustic guitars. They're so difficult to do because normally the wood is very, very hard, and it becomes brittle when it's been stood for 20-25 years. It's never been treated with oil. Then getting the frets in, you're having to hammer them in on really, really hard brittle wood, and they don't want to go in. And if they do go in, they want to pop out. So like I said, I'm going to do 5 at a time. I'm going to glue them all in, and I'm just going to clamp them 5 at a time. And even if it's going well, and I think I can get 10 at a time done, I'm not doing that. I'm doing 5 at a time. With the glue, I'll let them set. I'm going to use epoxy as well. I'm going to let them set for 2 hours before I move on to the next 5. And when it comes to the trimming and leveling and everything, I'll do it as I normally do it. But it's all about getting them seated in. Again, people, foundations, you've got to get them seated perfectly. Anything else after that, you can do. You can change the tops, no problem. This fret wire is also a little bit higher than I would like to go. It's 1.3mm. Good thing about that is it gives me a lot of room for adjustment and manoeuvrability later. If I need to take quite a bit off a couple of them, I can do that. I can take 1/3 of a millimetre off, still get them down to, and we still have a millimetre height, which is absolutely plenty. End of the day, it's all about getting the job done properly. And this being a Jim Harley, might not be a big brand name. I've been talking to a couple of people and they're saying these ones, the Korean ones, these are the good ones. You know, nowadays we're all made in Indonesia or whatever. So, end of the day, I know all the factories in Korea are very good factories. Nice guitar, so let's do it justice, let's get it done right, and that's that. Oh, by the way, I have fixed the electrics. I put a new stereo jack in there. I've had a battery in it now 3 days, so it's 72 hours, and it's still on full beam. See if I can show you there. You see, hopefully you'll see the light come on. Let's get over there. There you go. Had that battery in 3 days now, and it's not wearing out. So I've fixed that problem. The electrics do work, I've tested them, so that's all good. So I'm going to crack on. I may or may not come and show you some updates now and again on the work being done. All depends how it goes. I tend to like get a few in first, see how it goes, see how they clamp in, whatever. And I'll come back and show you a little bit of the work later on. And so stay tuned for that, and I will see you soon. Right, we are back with this Jim Harley, and this is going to be the final part of part 2 of this video, because I'm just about to remove the clamps from my neck, refret. I did it in 2 lots. I did it in 3 lots, anyway. Put the last 10 frets in last night, stuck the clamp on there. This half I had to hammer in, this half, or just under half here, I could just get it on the press. 11 I had to hammer in, 9 went in on the press. It's why I'm using the heavy clamp, just to give them a right good press in there. I went in again with just the Type Bond glue. I pre-cut all of the frets, precision cut, so the tang just fits right inside the binding, and I'm hoping it's all come out As long as they're flat or a bit even on the top, right, I'll be happy, because anything else I can fix. The problem with the last, when I first did the refret, was some of the edges didn't stick and they were popping back out. There was really no use to anyone at all. So let's get the gubbins out of the way and we'll have a look and see how we are. And they seem to be absolutely fine. I will show you my handiwork. And they're in. And they look absolutely bang on. I'm just going to look down the neck there. We've got no problems here. We've got one just sticking up here. If it's not bouncing out, which I don't think it is, I can see it there. I can't have any sticking out because I've got no fret wire left. So we're going to go with that one, this one here. So it's number 14. So that's going to be high on that spot. So let me just get a so number 14 is going to be high in this area. No, actually isn't, it's fine. This rod is probably sticking out just a bit more than any other, that's all. That's absolutely brilliant. A bit of a high one there, but just going across the frets, a couple of little high spots, but I'll tell you what, we've got a good level on these. Oh, well pleased with that. Hardly any of these frets want touching. That is absolutely brilliant. Really, really pleased with how that's come out. Again, let's look down the side of the neck down here. That's absolutely fine. Right, if we just tap the edges of these frets, when listening for a hollow sound, if we've got a hollow sound, it's not stuck right, I think we're going to be alright. Those frets are all glued in very well. They're almost level, and that's, I've not even had to do a level yet, so I'm going to somehow, I was going to remove this tape. This tape's going to be a bit of a bind to get off because we've got some glue soaked in there, but I think it's going to be a really, really clean job. I'm going to get the edges filed, get the bevel on there, then we'll do a complete level, and then we can crack on with the re-crowning and getting them all polished up. So there's a good day and a half left in this. It's not a 10-minute job doing a refret. It's a 2-day job doing a complete refret, especially on something like this. It's something a little bit stubborn to get the frets into because the wood's just been so dry. Well, the wood is so dry. But very pleased with how that's come out. So I'm going to end this part of the video now, part 2. I think it's gone on for probably gone a bit too long. It's going to be well over 30 minutes. So come back in part 3 where I'll do the leveling, the beveling, the re-crowning, the polishing, and we'll get the guitar set up. Oh, one more bit of good news before we go. The battery's now been in for, I believe, 14-15 days, and look, can you see that? It's still fully charged. So we fixed that issue. Absolutely brilliant. So this is end of part 2. Make sure to tune in part 3, and I will see you soon.